Talking Jets Overtime, presented by SiriusXM. The Jets fall 27-22 final score in Minnesota. The green and white now 7-5 on the year. The Minnesota Vikings expand their lead, or expand their winning total, to 10 wins, 2 losses. Ethan Greenberg, Quincy, Enunwa. Let's bring in Anthony Becht. We're going to hear from Caroline Hendershot and Eric Allen throughout the show. Quincy, let's start with you. The Jets had a real chance in this game to pull one out, just fell short.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think you look at the game, and it's just one of those games that they just didn't start fast enough. You know, if you look at what they had, 1-6 in the red zone. What was it? About 3-16 for the third downs. You know, they couldn't finish in this game, and this is a team that usually finishes, and it just wasn't the case today.
The Jets 3 of 16 on third down, 19%. Conversely, the Minnesota Vikings converted 9 of 18. That's 50%. Anthony, from your perspective, is that really all this game came down to, was the Jets' third down and red zone numbers?
Yeah, I think so. You know, look, I think from front to finish, in particular the second half, it was an exciting game. I mean, you know, you get frustrated when you see the field goals go up, but I think if you look in the past, you would have taken field goals when you couldn't get anything from a scoring standpoint. The defense did a good job of maintaining at least the closeness in this game to give the offense a chance to figure things out as they moved along. I think the first half obviously was kind of the setting of how it was going to be. I thought Mike White played a really good game. Statistically, it looks great. I bet you he'd love to take back a couple ball placements, a couple spots where he threw the ball today that maybe could have made a difference. But on the same turn, your receivers are going to have to make tough catches sometimes as well. You look at that throughout the game, whether it be in the end zone, or you're trying to pull a ball down, there's Barrios or some of the other Conklin as you get into the red zone as well. You know, sometimes you have to make a great catch to help your quarterback out. So, you know, I talked about this in the pregame, and this will be kind of for the rest of the season. And, you know, over 30 passes is always a problem area unless the game dictates how you want to kind of go about your system today. I thought there was a little inconsistency early on. I think they were really confident in the fact that Mike White could get it done with his arm, but I still think you don't put that on his back, at least early in the football game. Try to keep it balanced. Bam is a guy that heats up as he goes. Really exceptional runner, really like his style. He's not going to make a lot of people, he's not going to outrun a lot of guys, but he had a big run in the second half. I think he kind of gets better if you charge him up a little bit with the football. So maybe just coming out to the gates, having that balance could have helped the team a little bit, at least take some pressure off Mike. I totally get it, though. Mike brings a different element to the passing game, but I still think being it's only his second start of the year, you know, you don't want to put it all on his back, even though you feel confident as an offense with him at the helm.
Yeah, the red zone was elusive for the Jets this game. 1 of 6 inside the red zone. That came on the Mike White quarterback sneak for the touchdown. Of course, the Jets' first 12 points came on the right foot of Greg Zuerlein, including a franchise record on the road, 60 yards before the half, which was a fantastic kick. But Quincy, you talk about this offense starting fast. And like I just said, Greg Zuerlein was responsible for the Jets' first 12 points. What do you think needs to happen moving forward, or what was the problem in this game that didn't allow the Jets to find the end zone early?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. It's hard to really understand what was going on for them, whether it was the flight getting there or it being an away game. They're usually a pretty good team in away games, and that just wasn't the case today. They started off really slow. You saw Conklin drop some passes. You saw Corey Davis drop some passes. They weren't able to connect the way they usually can, and that was just a hard thing to overcome. They had to go back into the locker room and really kind of figure it out for them to come out in the second half and have a stronger, have more strong drives. You know, you can't do that every game. This is a team that is tops in the league, right? Fourth quarter, they're tops. Their record shows it. You know, they continue to prove that they are who they are, right? There's a few games that they could have played better in terms of the Vikings, but this is a good team. And so when you know that, you got to go into this game knowing, okay, we have to start strong and finish strong, and that just wasn't the case today.
Anthony, you mentioned Zonovan Knight, the undrafted rookie who had over 100 scrimmage yards again, by the way. He was very good on the ground. To your point, felt like he started to heat up as the game went on, but using that analogy about heating up as the game went on, that kind of felt like the case for the defense. When you take a look at Minnesota's offensive numbers, 198 yards in the first half, only 89 yards in the final 2 quarters. What did you think about the way that this Jets defense started the game and versus the way that they finished the game?
Yeah, second half was really lights out. I thought the Vikings did a really good job up front of maintaining the security that Cousins needed initially to kind of get things going. They really couldn't get there the way they wanted to or get home. The second half was much different. I thought Quinn Williams, again, dominated this football game. Just a guy that continues to come out every single week and put it together. And it became tough in the second half for the Vikings to really get things cooking. 20 points in the first half, clearly that's not where you want to be. That's definitely not the standard that's been set by this defense throughout the year. Clearly the offense can help with that as far as putting points on the board as well and maintaining drives and getting third down opportunities and converting, which didn't happen at a very high clip today. But, I think overall in that second half, they at least maintained it so that the offense could get their footing back. And when they did, they were able to get this game going, especially at the end, making a stop, getting the clock. Even though there was about 2 minutes left, they had 3 timeouts left. They were able to get 3 quick bang tackles and get the ball back to the offense to give them a chance. And I think that's all you want when you're an offense is your defense to give you those chances, and they got those, and they had that opportunity to go out and win this football game at the end.
Yeah, we're going to break down basically the turning point of the game later on. But when you take a look at the numbers here, staggering for the Jets because they total almost 500 yards, almost double what Minnesota had. You take a look at the third down numbers like we talked about. Minnesota was very good on third down. The Jets were not. The number that stands out to me is the passing net for the Minnesota Vikings, only 159 yards. Kirk Cousins held to 173 yards. And Justin Jefferson led the Vikings with 45 receiving yards. He was averaging 120 yards per game over the last 3. And we've been talking about that popcorn matchup between Justin Jefferson and Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed throughout the course of the week. And Caroline Hendershot caught up with Sauce after the game.
Here with Sauce Gardner. Sauce, what was the messaging from Coach Sala after the game in the locker room?
He said we played hard. We just got to execute more. He said he could tell we left everything out there. We had a lot of opportunities in the first half defensively, offensively second half. But ain't no way we should have let that game slip away from us though.
What do you think were some of the biggest differences from the first half defense to the second half's defensive performance?
We just had to remind ourselves, when we was in halftime, we had to remind ourselves that we ain't playing like ourselves, We ain't got that swagger that we usually have. We ain't having fun with it. Everybody was just too serious. Not saying we ain't supposed to be serious, but as a young team, we like to have fun on the field. So, that's the biggest difference between the first half, second half. If anybody made a mistake, second half, they was making a mistake fast. You couldn't even tell it was a mistake, but first half, we just had to tighten up.
And how do you take those good things that happened in today's game, because there were some good things, and take them and move on next week without letting this loss impact the team?
You got to face reality. You got to watch the good things and the bad things. But, at the end of the day, them good things is what you want going into the next week. So we got to make sure we getting better with the good things that we had, and we got to make sure we cleaning up the not so good things.
Thanks for the time, Sauce.
You're watching Jets Overtime, presented by SiriusXM. Ethan Greenberg, Quincy Enunwa here in the BetMGM studio. Let's go to the turning point, guys, and let's bring back Anthony Becht, because Garrett Wilson had a fantastic game, and that 60-yard catch and run, to me, it was the turning point, because what happens here is Garrett Wilson almost changes the outcome of the game, but the left foot of Garrett Wilson right there steps out of bounds. The Jets cannot convert. I actually made a mistake earlier. I said the first 12 points came off of Greg Zuerlein's foot. It was the first 15. Garrett Wilson, he stays in bounds. The Jets aren't looking to score a touchdown late. Obviously, they're looking to put up points. That kind of changed the complexity of the game. Also, in that same breath, that gave the Jets offense life in the fourth quarter as the Jets tried to surmount a comeback. Obviously, they fell short. But, Quincy, let's start with you. That play, what do you think it did for the Jets from that point on from an offensive perspective?
Well, it created a spark for them. It gave them an opportunity to see that they are able to move the ball on this defense. And I think that's what they needed to see, because they weren't able to do that prior to this. And it's unfortunate that it ended with another 3 points on the scoreboard. You would have wished that they would have came out with a touchdown, but that's why this is the turning point, because if they would have scored here, the game looks completely different. So going into this, I think the team knew, okay, Garrett Wilson is doing what he needs to do. Let us all rally around him. But again, the red zone offense just was not able to execute.
So at that point, the score was 20-12. The Jets settle for a field goal. They make it 20-15. Anthony, from your perspective, the Jets were sitting pretty there to try to punch it in. They did not do so. From your perspective, what went wrong on those 3 plays?
Yeah, I think from a standpoint of just, you got to dig deep, whether it's offensive linemen coming off the football, knowing those scenarios and situations. You have to be determined to punch it in. Everybody's got to be in that same wavelength. You look at, maybe it's more push, it's holding up, it's backside cutoffs. Everybody's got to do their job at a very high level to give your quarterback, your running backs, receivers those chances that you need. And it starts up front. I always feel like when you get in those goal line situations and you get close and you get tight, you got to amp it all up across the board up front. At least you know that it's not going to be on your back and you're coming off the ball, whether it's a run or it's the protection you need to get the ball out of Mike's hand or the quarterback's hands to make a play. So, again, it's just getting dialed in. I think just like anything else, man, you got to understand the gravity of the situation. And at some point, you got to get in the huddle and come out and with the leadership across the board and say, hey, we're going to get this done. And the Vikings made a play. You got to give them credit. I mean, their defense, they got a lot to play for as well. Yeah, they got 9 wins, but they can wrap this division up themselves. So they had a lot to play for on their end. And I was really impressed the way their defense was holding up throughout the game and really not giving up a lot of the big plays, at least initially early. A lot of plays were left on the field outside of that opportunity there. A couple balls down the field. We talked about some drops, some key open players. But all in all, I just think that balance is always a question mark. And again, when you're getting down, that's when it starts leaning towards the pass. And I thought Mike did a valiant job with it, especially when he got knocked on his butt on that one play, came back on 4th down and converted. So he's tough. It's fun to see. It's nice to see the offense go between the 20s. But yeah, clearly the red zone 1 for 6 you get half of those, it's a different ball game, right? So. And we still talking about how we didn't take advantage of the red zone as well. So you have to be more efficient in those areas, and it showed up today.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the 4th and 10 play. That was a 31-yard catch from Corey Davis after Mike White took a big shot. And the reason why I think the Garrett Wilson 60-yard reception is the turning point is because after the 4th and 10, the Jets are set up later in that drive. 1st and goal from the 4-yard line. They do not get in the end zone, which really was the nail in the coffin for the Jets. The Jets did get the ball back after holding the Vikings, wasting all 3 timeouts, and they had a shot late at the game again. But if Garrett Wilson doesn't step out of bounds, you're looking at a different situation there, 1st and goal on the 1-yard line. Quincy, that series where the Jets ran the ball twice with Zonovan Knight, they couldn't find the end zone. What do you think, like, if you had 20/20 hindsight, you calling the same plays you called there, you wasting clock, or how are you approaching that?
Remind me again, the 3rd and 4th down plays were?
Well, the 1st down play was Zonovan Knight. Mm-hmm. The 2nd down play, again, Zonovan Knight for a 1-yard gain. Right. Then Mike White tried to go to Garrett Wilson. He got caught in some traffic. Right. And then the 4th and 1, Mike White tried to throw it to Braxton Berrios.
Yes.
And that got, obviously, that hit him in the hands, but it did not. It fell to the turf, so it was incomplete.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch it over again and you think about the whole series, I think that they did what they needed to do. I think it just was a thing about execution, right? The play calls were not terrible on that series. I mentioned before that, they went to Braxton Berrios a few times in the red zone. I think that play there, that was a perfect time to go to Braxton Berrios. They had everything they needed. The play call was right. They just needed to execute the play, and it's unfortunate, again, because every time they get down there, they're so close to scoring, but then something happens. They even had another time where they went to Braxton Berrios and they had a penalty that moved them back about 15 yards. You can't do that. So, again, execution in the red zone was just not they weren't able to do that today.
Yeah, that play you're referencing was a screen to Braxton Berrios, and actually George Fant was the one called. Max Mitchell started the game. George Fant, who was elevated yesterday from injured reserve, actually came into the game because Robert Saleh said that he felt Max Mitchell was struggling a little bit. Right now, you're taking a look at the Mike White numbers from today. Completed 54.4% of his passes, threw for 369 yards against the league's worst passing defense statistically. He had the 1 rushing touchdown, no passing touchdowns. He threw 2 interceptions. One of them hit off the hands of Corey Davis, fell into the hands of Harrison Smith. The other one came on 4th down on the final passing play, and the Vikings defender just picked it off. So good day from Mike White statistically. Obviously, the Jets were hoping that they got the win. Final score 27-22. It's time to go back out to Minnesota. Let's bring in EA. EA, after talking to some of the guys in the locker room, what's the general vibe coming from the Jets right now?
No moral victory for the New York Jets today. Yes, they went into Minnesota, a team that I think clinched the NFC North actually with a win and a Detroit Lions loss. So they're now 10-2, but the Jets had their opportunities to win the ball game, but nobody was walking away from the locker room. Robert Saleh made that clear in the locker room after the game that, listen, yes, we did some things well today, but we're not taking moral victories out of that. Mike White echoed those sentiments. So did some members of the football personnel department that I just talked to. The bottom line is this is a dejected group who still has a lot of confidence, Greens. You look at the statistics today, the Jets nearly doubled the Minnesota Vikings in terms of total yards, but ultimately when they had to make a play in the fourth quarter, which we saw this team do so many times before today, they couldn't get over that final hurdle.
Yeah, it's a great point. The Vikings were 8-0 in one-score games entering Sunday, now moving to 9-0. Final score 27-22, of course. But to your point, you take a look at the numbers. Mike White threw for 370 yards, 369 to be exact. Kirk Cousins threw for 173. The Vikings still put up 27 points. From your opinion, being there, what do you think was missing from this Jets performance?
Well, I go back to the first half and say the story of that opening 30 minutes was a lack of efficiency on third down. Conversely, you had Kirk Cousins and the Vikings who did not put up gaudy numbers, but they converted time and time again in the first half. In fact, they converted 7 of their first 10 attempts. I think they finished the first half 8 of 11. The bottom line in the second half, and you guys know this, it was all about the red zone numbers. The Jets had 6 trips inside the red zone, and they come away with 1 touchdown, including those final 2 heartbreaking drives. In order to win in this league, in order to make the postseason, you have to convert in the red zone.
Well, going off of that, the Jets right now, EA, 7-5. There's some games going on in the 4 o'clock hour that can have playoff implications in terms of seeding. But going up to Buffalo next week, where do you think this leaves the Jets with a couple games left on the slate?
Well, listen, you got to turn the page in a hurry. You're going into Buffalo against a Bills team you defeated a couple of weeks ago at MetLife Stadium. They are 9-3 in the division. You are now a couple games back. That is a huge game for the green and white. The bottom line, Robert Saleh has always said, hey, listen, we have to take care of our business. If we don't take care of our own business, then the rest of everything that's happening around us, it won't matter. So the Jets have to win some ball games. Again, today, they showed a lot of fight, Greens, a lot of mettle, a lot of resiliency. They were down 17 points. I think most people wrote them off. And that team kept on battling, but Greg Zuerlein, who had a great day at the office, you got to congratulate him on not only the franchise record field goal, but just nailing each and every opportunity ahead. You don't want to see Zuerlein out there. You want to see him kicking extra points. I thought the defense did a good job responding in the second half against Dalvin Cook and finally getting some pressure on Kirk Cousins. But for the Jets, they just didn't have enough today.
Great stuff, EA. Have a safe flight back from Minnesota back to Florham Park. Right now, taking a look at the Rook's numbers. He led the Jets in scrimmage yards. He led the Jets in receiving. That's Garrett Wilson, the number 10 overall pick from the 2022 draft. 8 receptions, 162 yards for a 20.3 average. We obviously saw the 60-yard reception. Quincy, let's take a look at some of Garrett Wilson's best plays.
All right, so I got this new toy today with the Surface, so we're going to go over some of these plays right here. This first one is this great pass, this great catch by Garrett Wilson on the sideline. One thing I really want to point out is that he does a great job. He doesn't run routes like a rookie, so you're going to see him run this deep out here. But usually whenever you run this deep route, you're going to see a lot of guys, usually right there, they'll run the out. Instead, he does a great job right here. We're going to slow it down for you. He does a great job of sticking here and then continuing his route so the DB doesn't know what's going to happen, and then he runs it out there. A great job by Garrett Wilson and a great throw by Mike White. We'll let it play real quick.
Incredible sideline awareness, too.
Oh, man, he's a great receiver. The guy does everything you want him to do. I'm going to show the backside just to see how great he is at staying the awareness, right, to keep his feet in bounds right here. Look at this. Oh, man, that's toe drag swag right there, baby.
Yeah, Nate Burleson would be proud of that.
He really would be. So, I mean, I just want to run it right back one more time. I want you guys to see this because this guy is so great. This is not your usual rookie receiver route. The ability to know, okay, I need to get to my depth. This guy's in the way. I'm going to break it past him and then run the out. It's a great route by him. So then this next play, everybody knows what's going to happen here. We got his 60-yard catch. And the one thing I love about this play, we're running from the top, is that it looks like the play is not supposed to go to him. So you're going to have this post from him, and then this out here, this out and up right here. Usually you're going to throw it out and up, and Garrett is supposed to be just the guy that clears it out. But Garrett is open here. And this is a great job by Mike White to know that he's open and throw it quick right there and let him make a play. One thing I really want to highlight here, though, is his teammates making blocks for him, right? You got a block there. You got Corey Davis here also making a block. So his guys really want to see him score. It's unfortunate he stepped out right there, but what a great play by him.
Garrett Wilson, the first Jets rookie receiver with 3 games of at least 100 yards, surpassing Al Toon. But Corey Davis, you mentioned him on the block. He had a big catch for the Jets.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll start from here. The play prior to this one, Mike White took a huge hit, right? A huge hit on this play. So it's great for him to come back and stick the ball in the perfect spot.
On 4th and 10, no less.
Exactly. So what you're going to have here, you're going to have a clear out here from Elijah Moore. You're going to have a deep in here. And it's a great combination. The Vikings are single high coverage, so the Jets call the right play on this play. Here we go. Stay in the pocket, knowing guys are coming towards him. You got a guy here. You got a guy here. Doesn't care. Sticks it in the hole. Great play by him. It's a great play.
Great play. Mike White, 369 passing yards on the day, and he caught up with Bob Wischusen after the game.
Mike, how disappointed?
Yeah, very. Thought we started a little slow. Finally started to execute there in the second half, and credit to our defense, keep getting us the ball and giving us those chances. I think it was 6 trips to the red zone, 1 touchdown. We got to find more ways to score, and that starts with me as the quarterback. You know, whatever it takes to get the ball in the end zone and help win the game, I got to figure it out.
Every game provides teach tape. Every game provides a learning curve for every player. Is that the number one thing that you're going to take out of this game, the red zone opportunities and what the offense as a whole and you could do to improve on that going forward?
Yes, no doubt. You got to go in tomorrow, learn from it, correct it, get better from it, and not let it beat you twice. You know, learn from it, turn the page, draw on those experiences when they're necessary to. But the biggest thing I took from today, and by no means am I interested in moral victories, but this team fought their freaking tails off. I mean, if this didn't show what type of team we are, I don't know what will. I mean, started off not too hot, down 3 possessions or whatever it was, and to be able to come back and make it a game shows the no quit attitude in that locker room. And now again, I'm not trying to say it was a moral victory, so we're gonna be happy about that. No, we want to win, and this team is ready to win. We just need to execute.
And do you expect to hopefully be the quarterback going forward?
Yeah, I started off this thing on a week-to-week basis, and I'm going to continue that. It's hard to do it otherwise. When your mind starts to wander, is when you start to play differently and out of your game. So we got to learn from this tomorrow, move on to Buffalo, and then we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob.
White and Bob Wischusen. You're watching Jets Overtime presented by SiriusXM. Ethan Greenberg, Quincy Enunwa. Let's bring back Anthony Becht. All right, guys, it's time for our report cards. Quincy, let's start with you. Who are you going for your report card? Or what kind of grades are we giving out here?
Yeah, so this one was a little bit tough. You know, I try to be the good grader, but I think we got to kind of give these guys accurate grades. So for the offense, I'm giving them a C. You know, I think that they had a good game in the second half, but they just didn't start off well. On top of the fact that, like I said earlier, red zone efficiency was bad, 1 for 6. Third downs, 3 for 16. You know, it's just not the type of game that you want to play. You know, when you look at just the stats in terms of yards gained, it was like a great game, right? Zonovan Knight had 100 scrimmage yards. Mike White had 360 passing yards. Those are all great stats. Those are things that you really want to write home and say, I had a great game. So there's a lot of great individual performances, but as a whole on the offense, it just didn't cut it. And let me not even say, I forgot, Garrett Wilson had a great game as well. Again, great individual performances, but as a team, as a unit, it wasn't great. On the defensive side, I gave him a B. I probably could have gone lower, but when I think about the first half, it just was not what you want from a Jets defense. We went into this game thinking that they would be able to get pressure on Kirk Cousins. They really couldn't get back there into the second half. It's a tale of two halves for this defense. The first half was not what you wanted to see. The second half, you really saw them kind of step up. They got more stops. They were able to get back to the quarterback. They got more. They were able to slow down Justin Jefferson. So, again, I'm giving the defense a B here because of all those different things. And then special teams, I gave them an A+. When you go 5 for 5, you make a 60-yard kick, Greg the leg, that's a great performance by them. So I gave them an A+.
I think it's a fair grade defensively and offensively speaking. It's almost like you could give two separate report cards from the first and the second half. Exactly. Anthony, what kind of grades are you giving out from your end?
Yeah, well, obviously I must be soft because after those grades, mine are a little different, but close. A C+ offensively, just wasn't enough to start the game. You have to finish in the red zone. I think that the feel of the offense, though, is it's much different than it was before, right? There's a lot to like. There's a lot to see what this offense can be. I love the ball distribution is great. I think even with the numbers, and Q said it best about, there's a lot of great stats individually, but there's going to be some passes that some receivers and tight ends wish they were able to hold on to that could have been different. And there's some ball locations and throws that Mike White would have loved to have, but you look at the statistics and you're thinking those are great games. I just think it's nice to see that you have the ability to do that offensively at some point in the game to be strong. From a defensive standpoint, I got a B-. When you talk about, 20 points in the first half, the third down percentage in the first half, that's a lot. It's a lot to overcome, especially in the offense. Wasn't able to punch it in, and there's some opportunities missed there. But you gotta love the strain in the second half. Some good individuals. Whitehead had a really good game. We talked about Quinn Williams again, his dominance up front. A couple tackles for a loss, a sack. Just owned the game. Hard to block. I think they could have gotten a little bit more pressure in the game early on, just to, really get at Kirk Cousins. But again, 20 points to me is not gonna really get it done. It puts a lot of pressure on everybody. And then special teams is an A. You made your kicks, 5 field goals is impressive. I will say this though, guys, from a fan's perspective, when they look at this game, the thing they always look about is, this team is different, right? And there are no moral victors. We get that. But I think at 20-3, I guarantee you, Jets fans in their minds, because of just what they've seen in the past, man, here we go. We're all jacked up, and all of a sudden it's 20-3. We're not going to. But yet the fight was there. They continue to go and grind. Those things are signs that this team is different. There's no question about it. 7-5, I get it. Everybody think, well, got to have 8-9 playoffs, all that stuff. You want to see this team in a game every single week in the fourth quarter. Right now, they're in that position. They had a chance to win this game, period. Bottom line, regardless of what happened, the last drive, they had the ball in their hands. They had an opportunity to go down, and they had an opportunity to get a touchdown, and they didn't get it to seal the game. But I just love the fact that they're in those moments. And it's been continuous now moving forward. I think Mike White is only going to get better. Balance is going to be key for this team. I think you get overzealous a little bit sometimes because Mike does a really good job at dispersing the football. But in general, the efficiency of really all aspects of what you're doing offensively has to be the mindset because the defense can play so well. So, again, there are no moral victories, but, man, felt good about what you saw. If you're a Jet fan. I
also think it's very important to note that this was Mike White's 5th career start. He's been in the league since 2018, so he's seen ball. But this is only the 5th time that he started an NFL game, and it happened to come against a 9-2 Vikings team at the time, now 10-2, and he put up 369 passing yards, which is kind of leading me into my report card. I was a little bit of a nicer grader than both of you for the offense. I'm going with the B- because here's the thing. The offense did not start fast. They actually had 380-plus yards in the second half. We've talked about the third down struggles. We've talked about the red zone struggles. But this offense gave the Jets a chance to win. And not only that, the Jets settled for a field goal after the Garrett Wilson 60-yard catch and run. That it's now 20-15 at the time. The Vikings storm down the field, and they score a touchdown on 3rd and goal to Justin Jefferson with DJ Reed in coverage. And then after that, the Jets drive the length of the field again and respond to make it a 5-point game to give the Jets a chance late to win the game, just like you said, Anthony Becht. So I'm giving the offense a better score than both of you, and I think they're all fair in their own ways. I just think that you can't discredit what the Jets offense did moving forward. Now, defensively, it's a B for me. You think about the first half a little bit different than the second half. The Jets like to get after the quarterback. They had 2 sacks today, both of which came in the second half. Really felt like the screws were tightened in halftime and forward. And then special teams, to both of your points, when your first 15 points come from the right foot of your kicker, including a 60-yard franchise record, you got to give an A. So that's where I'm going for my report card. And someone that we haven't really talked about just here and there, Zonovan Knight. We talked about Garrett Wilson. Great game for a rookie. How about Zonovan Knight in his 2 career games as an NFL player? He goes over 100 scrimmage yards, over 100 rushing yards last week against the Bears. He totals, or he eclipses the century mark again from scrimmage yards today. He had 90 rushing yards, averaged 6.0 yards per carry, and Caroline Hendershot caught up with him after the game.
Here with Zonovan Bam Knight. Bam, what was Coach Saleh's messaging to the team in the locker room after today's loss?
Basically, he said that nobody should have their heads down. He said, like, we fought until the end, and I agree with that as well. Like, obviously, we didn't get the results we wanted, but everybody, offense, defense, and special teams, everybody played until the end.
You especially had a second consecutive game of 100 or more yards from scrimmage. What was working well for you today?
I don't think anything really was working well for me. I think it was the offensive line. Like, they did a good job of executing on plays. Like, obviously, you know, like everybody, they make mistakes sometimes, but for the most part, like, when we needed big plays, they came out and they helped me execute. So,
speaking of big plays, Garrett Wilson, Mike White, 2 really essential players on the offense today. What did you see from them and how they were able to make plays when it really mattered?
Just them being calm employees. They didn't let the environment, they didn't let bad plays get to them. They just kept going out, just kept executing, kept honing in on the details that we worked throughout the weekend. So I think that was the difference, and that's the difference between a mature team and an immature team.
What's the biggest takeaway from today's matchup that you can get better at or improve on and go into the Bills game next week?
Me personally, or as a team?
As a team.
I think it's just executing. I think it was like a couple plays where it may have been small details. Like, obviously that's football, but like that could have been the difference in the game. So just honing in on those smaller details that the coaches try so hard to like emphasize throughout the week.
Awesome. Thanks for your time, Bam.
Thank you.
You're watching Jets Overtime, presented by SiriusXM. Ethan Greenberg, Quincy Enunwa, Anthony Becht, breaking down the Jets' 27-22 loss to the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. The green and white now 7-5 heading into Week 14. We're going to take a look at the upcoming schedule in a bit. But let's actually talk about some of the reaction here on social media. Socially speaking, one might say. Let's start with Joe Namath. He says, Jets fans, our team didn't play their best, but still took it down to the wire in a hostile environment and showed no quit. This is a loss that we can all hold our heads up after. Coaches, players, and fans, the Jets continue to gain respect around the football world. Anthony kind of talked about that. Quincy, I think this is a very agreed upon sentiment, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't look at this game and think that it's the end of the world. It's unfortunate in terms of taking a loss and killing your standings, but overall, as a team, this is a great game for them because they were able to continue their fight and be that team that ends games well.
All right, Darrell Revis chiming in. He says that keep striving for greatness. Love the way you guys compete every down. Hold your head up high. A lot more great football to play. And that's probably means a lot coming from a guy that was just inducted into the Jets Ring of Honor last week against the Bears. All right, moving on here. This is pretty cool from Next Gen Stats. On Garrett Wilson's 60-yard reception, he was expected to gain 5 yards after the catch. Instead, he gained 48 yards. Wilson has recorded plus 169 receiving yards over expected this season, leading all rookies, ranking 11th overall in the National Football League. Now you're taking a look at what the Jets tweeted out from their main social account. Said the boys gave everything they had. This team will keep pushing. And you take a look at, or you think about what the Jets did. They did take it down to the wire, one-score game against the 2 seed in the NFC. So like Mike White said, Like EA said, no moral victories for the Jets, but if you're a fan, there is definitely hope and optimism for the remaining slate here. And then DJ Reed chiming in, what you would assume would be the Justin Jefferson touchdown on 3rd and goal. He said, "That's on me. I'll be better." Anthony, when you took a look at that Justin Jefferson play, they ISO'd it one-on-one with DJ Reed. You credit that to Justin Jefferson, or you put some of that on Reed?
I mean, look, guys, I know that DJ Reed and Sauce, they've been awesome. But Justin Jefferson, he only had 45 yards. The guy's going to win. He's the best receiver in the league. I mean, it was tight coverage throughout. He had problems today. He couldn't really get what he wanted. He had a couple drops. I mean, it was hard for him to get going. And, of course, when you're in the red zone, man, those things are important. They're going to dial in. You're talking about a quarterback and receiver that have been meshing very well for the last couple of years now. And they're going to win more than they don't win when you're talking about that combination. So, yeah, I respect DJ Reed for taking ownership of that. But at the end of the day, he's going to make a lot more plays than giving up plays. I can't even remember the last touchdown he's given up prior to that. So, it was a good fight for this football team. Again, Quincy, obviously, he gets the win because he didn't get over 100 yards.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
It was a smart play on his side, getting the double digit. It's pretty impressive. He's in the double digits now.
Yeah.
But at the same token, I'll say, I mean, the secondary is good. I thought the Vikings secondary played well as much as they did. There was a lot of passes defended today as well. But I think Mike White, again, there was a lot left there. I really think Mike goes back. You're going to watch. You always never, even when you feel like it's great, you're like, man, and this and that and that one and this, you wish you had that. So I think you got to feel good about those opportunities. And like you said, it's his 5th start in his career, his 2nd consecutive start of the season. Over 300 yards plus in both. It's pretty dang good if you ask me. So, again, you got to feel good. And look, this league, this division, these teams are not going to win the rest of their games. The Dolphins may not win today. I mean, you're in this every single week. Every game matters. And like I said, I just feel like you got to take it down to the wire. They got to continue to play hard, and they should feel good about next week, what they're going to do, even coming off a loss. But they're like, man, we're right there. Let's just keep grinding the axe, grinding wood, and doing our thing because we can still do this.
I think it's a great point. You led me to the next point, which is the AFC standings. You're taking a look at what happened, or right now, the Jets are 7-5. The Dolphins and the Bengals are currently playing. So let's just talk about this real quick. The Miami Dolphins in the 3rd quarter in San Francisco, losing 17-10, and Jimmy Garoppolo has not played, or because he suffered a high ankle sprain. He's out for the game. Brock Purdy leading the San Francisco 49ers, 14 of 22, 135 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So right now, if you're a Jets fan, you're rooting for the 49ers. The other game, if you're a Jets fan, that you have to pay attention to is Chiefs-Bengals, which is at the half. The Kansas City Chiefs are at 10 points, the Bengals at 14 points. So Cincinnati, a 4-point lead. If we take a look at the AFC standings one more time, we can go over the implications here because the Jets right now have the 7 seed. If both of those teams lose, then the Jets, you would imagine, would remain in the 7 seed. Cincinnati would be 7-5. Miami would be 8-4. The one thing that you have to keep in mind is later today, or actually also happening right now, the LA Chargers up 13-10 over the Las Vegas Raiders. So the Jets and Chargers would have the same record. Don't know who would have the tiebreaker there. So right now, the Jets not in control of their own destiny for this week. Anthony, to your point, a lot of game or a lot of ball left to be had here. Week 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 left. Next week is a very tough test. So let's take a look at the upcoming schedule, which starts in Buffalo next week against the Bills. Quincy, you would imagine that Buffalo would be looking to at least make it a little bit of a revenge game after the Jets took them down at MetLife.
Yeah, definitely. The Buffalo Bills are going to be looking to make this a very challenging game for the Jets. This is going to be a revenge game for them. You said it. And, it's in Buffalo. That's a hard place to play, especially in a divisional game. Those fans are going to really be into it. It's going to be a tougher game for the Jets. They really got to bring their A game. And to come off a road loss and come into another road game, it's going to be very hard for them. Coach Saleh really has to make sure he's preparing these guys for this test that's coming up.
Hey, Anthony, Mike White going up against the Bills last year at MetLife resulted in 4 interceptions. Last time the Jets played the Bills at MetLife this year, it was Zach Wilson under center. He completed 18 of 25 passing, had a career-high 101.1 rating, completed a career-high percent of his passes, threw for 154 yards and a touchdown. I don't want to jump the gun and think about next week all too much, but what are realistic expectations in a hostile environment like Buffalo against a very good defense that, again, is the second team the Jets will see coming off 10 days rest?
Balance, okay? Don't go in that game putting it on your shoulders. You don't have to do everything. You know, a lot of the throws he's made the last 2 weeks are going against a much different defense than he'll see in Buffalo. These are much better. These guys are, you know, recent play against this team. They know each other well. Just go out there and maintain and manage, man. Just take what they give you, and it's okay to punt. Don't turn the ball over in this game. We'll go into the fourth quarter. As much as we worry about the Bills, and they're only getting healthier on defense, they're getting players back and all that stuff, the Bills have problems on offense versus the Jets. I mean, they have to worry about what the Jets do defensively, and that's an area, whether they're home or not. You know, if the Jets do what they do, it doesn't really matter once they hit you in the face, and then, okay, you know what, this is actually going to be a tough game. So I think it's about starting fast. It's about getting in a groove. Have some balance and don't lean on the arm. I'm sure the weather conditions, whether we know it'll be cold, there could be wind swirling, a lot of different things in that you don't want to get that game out of hand because the ball swirls into the defender's hands because you're trying to do all kinds of crazy, deep, different things. Take what they give you. If it's not there, move the chains. Better third down. Third down conversions are going to be key in that game.
Anthony Becht, great as always. We will catch up with you next week. You're watching Jets Overtime presented by SiriusXM. Quincy, just going off of what Anthony said, again, don't want to get ahead of yourself, but you kind of have to. The Jets are playing meaningful football games in December. They lose today, 7-5 on the year now. Going up to Buffalo, have an opportunity to get to 8-5, but also you know the Bills team is going to be hungry. From Mike White's perspective, again, what do you expect from a guy in now career start number 6, another hostile environment where weather and inclement weather could play a factor?
Yeah, well, when you listen to his post-game interview, he didn't sound like he was too fazed by what happened, right? It was a loss, but he feels like there was a lot of moments that they could learn from, grow from, and they also did a lot of great things. And he's right. You know, they did a lot of great things today. Unfortunately, it just didn't happen where it needed to happen. And so going forward, I think they're going to learn from this tape, and Mike White's going to be even more confident going into this Buffalo game. The Jets know they can beat Buffalo, so there's no lack of confidence in terms of the team. It's just Mike White having to carry himself into that game knowing that, okay, as a team, we can beat this team. I just have to make sure I'm doing what I need to do. And Anthony said it right there. Don't do too much. Just stay within the offense.
One last question for you. Is the recipe for success against Buffalo the same one that the Jets had in Week 9 at MetLife Stadium, or is it a little different now with the quarterback change?
I think it has to be different. It has to be different. You have a different quarterback. You got a guy that's not as mobile. You know, I think that last game, Josh Allen made a lot of mistakes. They're going to definitely fix that. So it's just important for him to know that I'm competing against the Bills defense, not Josh Allen. So when I go out there, I got to play within the offense.
Great point. The Jets lose a tough one in Minnesota, 27-22 final score, a tale of two halves for the green and white. The red zone and the end zone were elusive for the Jets in the first half and really throughout the game. The Jets' first 15 points came off Greg Zuerlein's right foot. The Jets 7-5 heading into Week 14 at Buffalo. That's all we have here in Florham Park on Jets Overtime, presented by SiriusXM. For Quincy Enunwa, Anthony Becht, Eric Allen, Caroline Hendershot, I'm Ethan Greenberg, and we will see you next week.